I thought it was. Denise Roche.
Kia ora, Mr Chair, and thank you. The Greens will be supporting this bill, but I'm going to take a short call to talk about local boards and their delegations. Like previous speakers, we actually think that this legislation should have come to the House a lot sooner, not on the eve of the elections. However, it's a good time to reflect on how the super city structure has been operating and how local boards have been operating as well. In preparation for this part, the Committee of the Whole House, I was actually just looking at the functions of the local boards and re-familiarising myself with the delegations. And the role of the local boards is to enable democratic local decision-making in the super city area, the Auckland Council area. That's an area that encompasses about 1.4 million people. And there are 21 local boards that are tasked with the job of protecting and enabling local decision-making. And that's a total of 149 local board members. When the super city was created in 2009 through the legislation that came from the national government, there was a lot of panic, I would have to say, in my community, and there was a lot of fear that we would lose our decision making, that we would be reliant or we would be unable to make any progress with what is a very large bureaucratic machine that runs our city. And I have to say that the local boards have protected some of that decision making. They haven't been able to protect as much of the decision making as previous community boards and previous councils did. And that, I guess, was the whole point of the amalgamation. But the biggest area where local boards have had trouble and where general citizens of Auckland, residents, ratepayers of Auckland have had difficulty is in trying to find out what happens with the council-controlled organisations. Now, I'm not the only person who has issues with the council-controlled organisations, and in particular the 7 big ones that were set up through the legislation that set up the amalgamated city. Those CCOs, council-controlled organisations, are not democratically elected and frequently are not accountable. And I guess we can have as an example of the worst sort of lack of accountability is what happened over the last year with the Ports of Auckland and the dispute there. The Ports of Auckland is owned by the citizens of Auckland. The Ports of Auckland is also governed by a board of directors. That board of directors is accountable to a CCO that was set up through the amalgamation of the super city, and that CCO is Auckland Investments Limited. And none of the councillors, no local board members, no elected officials were able to get a straight answer about the cost of the industrial action that occurred during the dispute at the Auckland ports. My point is, sir, that democracy was on the line, and democracy has been on the line as a result of the amalgamation. The people who are holding the line are the local boards and the local board members. Now, there has recently been an analysis of how the super city is working, and in fact, it's the AUT School of Public Policy and Social Sciences recently have released their research on what they call the Super City Project. They released it in August, and the mark they gave to the Super City or Auckland Council was a B. One of the comments they made was that local boards and the structure of the council, and the council, if you will remember, is the governing body on one side and local boards on another, that the structure of local boards is not particularly well understood. And I guess that is something that we have to continue to work on. And it will be interesting to see with these elections coming up what the voting return will be, because even in the last elections for council, the first elections for local board members, the return rate was about 51%. Only 51% of Auckland ratepayers actually voted for their councillors, their local board members. Mr. Chair.
Denise Roche.
Thank you, sir. So only 51% actually voted for their elected representatives. In smaller areas, and probably, and I think it's true with Rodney local board area as well, certainly with Waiheke, the voter turnout was a lot higher. On Waiheke Island, which managed to keep our own local board, it was about 64% voter turnout. But we're still looking at about a third of people who still don't participate in the democratic process. And when people don't participate in the democratic process, they leave the decision-making up to decision-makers who've not been elected by a true majority. These coming elections, we're seeing more of an interest, and certainly on Waiheke, the election of the local board members is almost a blood sport. That was my experience. We take our local democracy incredibly seriously. Now, some of the delegations that the local boards have been able to exercise over the last 3 years have included not just developing local board plans, negotiating local board agreements, negotiating service levels, but has also been around advocacy on regulatory matters as well. And I have to say that our local board on Waiheke, the majority of them, have been absolutely appalling in not advocating for our community. And yet it says specifically in the delegations and in the purpose of local boards and the governance statement for Auckland Council that is a role for local boards, that they advocate. That's what they're supposed to be doing. So these elections on Waiheke are seeing quite a lot of discussion about that role. We've had people saying that local boards are powerless, that local boards can't make decisions, that they're held, that they are unable to properly represent their communities to council because they're limited in what the delegations say. And that's simply not the case. And I know for a fact that the only local board member in this House, Tracy Martin, has worked very hard, and her local board has worked very hard to advocate on the behalf of the people of Rodney to Auckland Council because it is a co-governance arrangement. Mr. Chair, we will be supporting this bill through to its final reading. Thank you.
Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to take a call on the Local Government Auckland Council Member Bill